Learn how to use import method as a function to load JavaScript files on demand at runtime. So we want to look at the difference between a standard import and dynamic loading in JavaScript. Standard imports are like packing your entire house for a one-day beach trip. It slows you down. Dynamic import allows you to travel light. Your website only download the basic code it needs to show the first page and wait to download every fact features like other things that you have until the actual user clicks a button. So we want to mimic that dynamic import process in this example. And my script section, I have create math.js file and export it, import the file index.html and then display the result. So let's start with the first guide. Create math.js file. So I already have a math.js file, which I'm going to make use of. Yes. So I will just wipe everything I have inside it, and then I can just add a name checkbox for a function. And let me call the function add ALB. Then I want it to return the addition of A and B. So now that I have this file, I can come inside my base file, which is this part, and then import it. So import add from math.js. This is a standard import if you want to use the function. But in this example, we're not going to do a standard import. We want to look at how we can load that file dynamically. So I will take this part out and I'll first come inside my button here, inside my HTML here, and then make a button. So button ID is BTN, and then I will call it to load. So I've already added style. That is the reason why the button is looking fine like this. I don't want to go through that process again. So I've made my button. Then I can come inside my JavaScript section, which is the script section that I have inside my code. And then the first thing I want to do is I want to select that button. So how do you select the button? Document.get element by item. And I will just select the button. So now I have the button selected. Now that I have the button selected, what is next? I want to add an event listener because I want this button to fire only when someone performs an action on it because it's a button. So I'll add event listener. And what is that add event listener listening for? It's listening for a click event. And when it is being clicked, what should happen? So when this button is being clicked, I want the code to run in the background. So I need an async way to undo the code. And now that I've added async process, at this point, what will the browser do? The browser only download math.js when this button is clicked. So if the button is never clicked, let's say you are hovering over it, it will not do anything. Only when the button is clicked is when this event of add event listener will fire. That is only when the event will fire. If the button is not clicked, it is not going to do anything at the end of the day rather. So now that I have this, then for async and await pattern, when you make something an async, then you need a way to receive the process value when it is done. So I will just call this module. So I'll make this a variable and assign the results to it. So we just wait for the import to happen. So what do I want to import? I want to import from this file. And you may want to ask that, Why does this dynamic import looks like a function call? Well, it actually is. Static import is a structural keyword pattern, but dynamic import is an actually function built into the JavaScript engine. It reaches out across the network at that exact milliseconds to fetch the file. So now I have this and I have it to dynamically load my modules when it is being clicked on. So now I can just make another variable and call it result. So this result is where I'm now going to use whatever that is gotten from my file to be saved inside module, and I can now call that function that I have inside it. Add 4, 5 and 3 together. So it's now time for me to output the result. Document.getElement by ID. And then call it demo dot inner HTML equals to results plus results. And now if you look at it, this is not actually doing anything. Now, if you look at our click listener here, notice that there's no import statement at the very top of the script. So the page loads instantly because it is lightweight. So if I click on this now, you can see what is happening. Actually, it's not displaying anything. Let's inspect, because that should display something. Document.getElement by ID none. Okay, so there's a problem here. So demo 1, and I can go ahead and click this, and you can see the result is 8. Now, only when the user interrupt and trigger the event listener does when the await part fires. So the browser fetches the file on the fly. You can see that immediately I click on the button, then it display results. Let me do it again so that you understand. So if you are just hovering or not doing anything, you are not giving JavaScript any extra work. It's not going to fetch anything. Nothing's going to happen with this button, because this button will only listen for a click event. So unless it is click, it will not do anything. So click again and you should see the result is 8. So the browser fetches the file on the fly, unpacks the add2, and it uses it seamlessly. So the question I want to ask you is that if a user lands on our website but never clicks the button, does the browser ever download that file? Well, simple answer, no, because this saves data for your users and reduces unnecessary server load.